Hello and welcome into this week's ARCA Menard Series Rewind show right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, we're currently in our hashtag Race to 1K. If you haven't done it already, go down below, hit that subscribe button for me. It is free to do. The quicker we get to 1,000 subscribers, the quicker YouTube will let us do mobile live streaming, which will vastly improve both the quality and quantity of coverage we're able to give you when we get back to the track. Alright, so let's talk about last night's ARCA Menards West race. The NAPA 125 presented by CashInTheCan.com, 125 laps, 41.6 miles around the 3rd Mile All-American Speedway in Roseville, California. This was quite the race. This, I think, was, while maybe a little messy at times, maybe a little more wreck-filled than what a lot of people would like, I think this was quintessential short track racing at its best, especially as we got down to the end of the race and the finish of the race. The finish became a little controversial in terms of who won and how they won, but we'll get into that more shortly. But I'm just going to throw it out there right now. I don't think anybody did anything wrong in that situation. Again, I think it was just quintessential short track racing. So let's look at your caution report for the night. 6 caution flags for a total of 26 laps. The yellow flew a lot in this race for a race that had no scheduled race breaks. First one came very early, lap number 2, as Holly Holland got turned off the nose of Todd Souza in turn 1, and then Takuma Koga ends up riding up on the left rear of Todd Souza's car. Todd Souza actually got the nose of that car up in the air momentarily, really tore up the left rear of Todd Souza's car. That would not be the end of his night, though. We'll hear that name again later. Lap number 17, caution number 2 for the night, as Blaine Perkins got spun in turns 3 and 4 by Mason Diaz. Lap 62, the 88 of Bridget Burgess spun in turn 4. Lap 104, we had debris on the front stretch. Lap 111, Holly Holland got turned once again. And on lap 116, 3-car incident involving, really there were 2 incidents here. One, Gracie Trotter got nudged by Blaine Perkins in turn 3, which sent her up into Jack Wood, and both Trotter and Wood ended up in the wall in this incident. And then, separately, Mason Diaz got spun as well from the second or third position. He was up there still at that point. But that would end Mason Diaz's night because he got a lot of damage from this, as did Blaine Perkins. Blaine would be able to continue, Mason would not, although Blaine wasn't as competitive as he was up to this point. Lap leaders on the night. We have 3 drivers that led laps in this race. Taylor Gray led the vast majority of this race at 116 of the 125 laps. Mason Diaz spent 7 laps out front, while Gio Scelzi spent 2 laps out front in this race. So which of those 3 drivers would come home with the victory in this race? Taylor Gray put on a dominating performance, as you can tell, leading the vast majority of this race. Would he be the one to finally pick up his first ARCA win? Would Mason Diaz steal the show with only 7 laps led? But remember, we mentioned he got real torn up late in the race, and that would be the end of his night. So it was not Mason Diaz. So that takes it down to Taylor Gray and Gio Scelzi. Gio Scelzi led 2 laps in this race. Were those the 2 most important laps of the race? Were those the final 2 laps? Yes, they were. Gio Scelzi comes away with his first career ARCA Menard Series West victory in a bit of a controversial finish. Coming off of turn 4, he gave a bit of a nudge to Taylor Gray coming to the white flag, got up beside him. They banged across the start-finish line down the front stretch. The contact apparently cut the left rear tire on Taylor Gray's car, which sent him spinning into turn 1 and took him out of contention for the win on the final lap, and Gio Scelzi would go on to win the race. I've seen some talk that this was overly aggressive on Gio's part, that he more or less dumped Taylor Gray in this final lap, and I'm just going to tell you right now, he did not dump Taylor Gray. Both of those cars were beating and banging on each other. While Gio may have initiated it coming off of turn 4 with a bump and run, this was just short track racing. Nothing happened here that was wrong in my eyes. Gio did everything he could possibly do for his first career win, aside from straight up dumping Taylor, which he didn't do, and Taylor did everything he could do to hold that lead once Gio had gotten there off of turn 4, and unfortunately, Taylor was not able to make it back around, still competing for the win as he got that flat left rear. So very unfortunate unfortunate ending to the race for Taylor Gray, but in the end, Gio Scelzi comes away with that first career win and such an exciting finish. Remember how I said we would mention Todd Souza again later? Well, he somehow snuck in for a second place finish through all the carnage at the end of this race. Somehow, Todd Souza came home for a second place finish with an extremely torn up car that had been torn up for the entire race. Really showed no speed all night, especially after that lap 2 incident. I don't know where Todd Souza came from on that last lap. I really don't. Somehow, though, he came home with a second place finish. So kudos to Todd Souza. Great run for him last night. Trevor Huddleston came through the carnage for a third place finish. Jesse Love, who was off all night, running about 8th, 9th the entire night, was never a factor. Somehow pushed his way all the way to 3rd, coming to the white flag, and ended up 4th at the end of the race. So great job to Jesse Love, picking up as many points as possible on a night that was not a stellar night. Ends up slightly increasing his points lead. As you see, Blaine Perkins ended up falling to 5th at the end of the race, so actually gained a point on Blaine Perkins heading into the final 2 races of the season. Rest of your top 10, Holly Holland in 6th, matching her career best finish. Taylor Gray ended up in 7th as the last car on the lead lap. Jack Wood a lap down in 8th. Takuma Koga -2 in 9th, and Gracie Trotter ended up 3 laps off the pace in the 10th position. Final page 11 through 13th, Bridget Burgess, Mason Diaz, and Bobby Hillis. So that's your results from the NAPA 125 presented by CashInTheCan.com. Gio Scelzi interview coming up very, very soon. In fact, coming up today. Keep your notifications on. That will come up here probably within a couple hours after this goes live, so keep an eye out for that. We'll talk to Gio Scelzi about this first career win from him. Let's look at the point standings following this race. 2 races remaining in the ARCA Menard Series West for 2020. And Jesse Love, as we mentioned, has lengthened this lead just slightly. Now a 17-point lead over Blaine Perkins with 2 races remaining this season. Not out of the question for Blaine Perkins to get up there and win this championship, but it's going to be tough without some issues from Jesse Love in these last 2 races at Kern and Phoenix. Again, not impossible, but it's going to be tough. Do I think Blaine can do it? Under the right circumstances, yes. With as strong as Jesse Love has been most of this season, I don't know that it's very likely at this point. But if Jesse continues to run for the next 2 races how he did last night at Roseville, anything is possible. Blaine could go out and win these last 2 races and Jesse runs 8th like he did last night. All of a sudden, Blaine has a legitimate shot at this in Phoenix. So who knows? That's why we do this. We don't know what's going to happen. We'll see what happens in these next couple of races, and we'll actually find out tomorrow what happens at Kern. Gio Scelzi, Gracie Trotter now tied for that 3rd spot in points. Gio actually has the tiebreaker with 1 more top 5, so that's why you see him in 3rd. Both of them -37. Trevor Huddleston still holds down 5th, -50. Todd Souza has slightly moved closer to a top 5 spot now with that 2nd place finish. He's now -59 off the lead. Holly Holland, you see, still there in the 7th position. But that's your point standings following the NAPA 125 from All-American Speedway, and I believe that'll do it for us on this Rewind show. Like I said, Gio Scelzi interview coming up here in just a little bit, so keep an eye out for that. Make sure your notifications are turned on, and we'll hear from him what he thought of that race last night in Roseville. And then, of course, a watch party coming up tomorrow for the race at Kern County Raceway Park. That'll be at 5 p.m. Eastern. Mid-afternoon race out there in Kern on a Sunday. Should be a good one. Kern's always a fun race, so hopefully we see some good racing in that one as well. And then just 1 race remaining after that at Phoenix on November 7th for the ARCA Menard Series West as part of the championship weekend celebrations with the top 3 series. We get to crown an ARCA West champion that weekend as well. Lots of exciting stuff coming up here in the final couple of weeks of the ARCA season, so you definitely want to be subscribed if you're not already, so you see everything we've got coming up here, as well as your next favorite driver. We just premiered the Holly Holland episode on Thursday. Great chat with her. If you haven't seen that already, you need to. One of the most fun interviews I've ever done, and it was really good getting to know her and letting you guys get to know her on more of a personal level as well. So like I said, if you haven't subscribed already, go down below, hit that subscribe button for me. Ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. While you're down there, hit that big thumbs up button for me if you like the video. It's much appreciated when you do. But at that, this has been the ARCA Menard Series Rewind Show. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.